Hey, everybody, Dave Hagan here. How much money do you need to be rich in 50 of the various major cities in the United States? That's today on the Financial Wellness Podcast.
Welcome to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to the financial success. Here is your host, financial problem solver and talk show host, Dave Hagan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Financial Wellness Podcast, or TFWP, as we like to call it. You're listening to episode 503. And look who's here with us today. Hey, it's Brian Reed.
Hi, David. How are you today?
I'm good. Good. You coming to us from Venice, California today?
I am.
I like it. I like it. And who else do we got coming to us long distance from San Diego?
Hey, it's Dave Hagan.
No, it's
You're Dave Hagan?
Brian. These young guys get so wise, just a bunch of wisecrackers. I want you guys to take your mic and your computer with you when you go on like some exotic trip one time, so I can go, hey, it's Brian Reed from Bora Bora. Or it's Nick Appel from Monaco. How you doing, man? That'd be pretty
Well,
cool.
if I'm in Monaco, I'm feeling pretty rich. I can tell you that.
We had Brian coming to us one time from Seattle.
I was in Seattle a couple of times, and I think I did San Francisco once as well.
Might have done San Fran. Scott's come to us a couple of times from Bakersfield and Vegas, actually. I think I dialed in, from Lake Arrowhead. So, yeah, we do this from the same places, but people should keep listening because at some point one of us might be at an exotic locale. Well, let's talk about today's topic. I saw an article on the internet. It was really interesting, got my attention. And, before you know it, I'm going down the rabbit hole, reading something that I didn't intend to read or think about so much, but it got my attention. And so here goes. This is an article that I want to talk about from GoBankingRates.com by Bob Hagel. And it talks about how much you need to be rich in 50 major U.S. cities. I thought, well, that's interesting because I got to think Los Angeles, New York, San Fran, I don't know. This will be interesting to see. So what they did is they took data from the U.S. Census and from a survey called the American Community Survey, and they looked at 50 cities around the United States, and they looked at what it would take to be in the top 20% income-wise. And that's their definition of rich. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But what does it take? What number does it take to get into the top 20% income-wise in various cities around the United States? And what cities are those? And then I thought that it would be interesting to see what we can kind of glean from that bit of information. So coming in at number 50, city number 50, Detroit. To be considered rich, according to this definition, being in the top 20%, you need $66,139 to be rich in Detroit. So we're starting at $66,139 to be rich. That ain't rich to me, but using this definition. And by the way, we're going to go up to $239,000. And I don't know if anyone can guess right now what that city might be, but it may or may not surprise you. Let's take another look at another city. How about Tucson, Arizona? You hear a lot about Arizona in the news lately. To be rich in the top 20%, $86,000 roughly. I'm going to start rounding these off. $86,000.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad at all.
Yeah. Now this article also talked about what it took to be in the top 5%, but it seems to me that some of these locations have an inordinate amount of millionaires in them, perhaps like Silicon Valley, and I thought that would skew the statistics and didn't interest me quite as much. Number 46, Miami. Now, I wouldn't have thought that Miami was that thrifty of a place
Wow.
to live, but to be rich in Miami, any guess what you need to make, guys?
$96,000.
Good guess.
120.
No. Nick's going to get the prize. 92,000, basically.
Oh,
No one gets the prize. We were both over.
the price is right.
How about the sister, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, number 42. What do you think it takes to be rich in Philadelphia?
$22,000.
No, $101,000. I wouldn't think that, for example, Philadelphia would, you'd need more money to live in Philadelphia than Miami. I don't know.
Yeah, that's unexpected.
Right. Number 40. Fresno, California, or as I like to say, Fresno, California. What does it take to be rich in Fresno?
$1 more than Philadelphia.
Yeah, about $1,000 more, 102,000. New Orleans, 103,000. That's number 39, coming in at 39. Let's pick another. I'm just picking some of these that I think that are interesting, because there's obviously others, but how about Baltimore, number 33, Baltimore? You need 109,000 in Baltimore. Kansas City, number 32, you need 109,000, and just a couple bucks more than than Baltimore. How about Vegas, baby? What do you need to be rich in Vegas?
115.
Good guess, 111. I would have thought it would have been less.
Over.
I think it would have been, I would have thought it would be less, because, you can always go eat at those buffets, right? Dallas. You gotta love Dallas.
Quick question,
Yeah.
Dave. Do they still have the buffets with everything going on?
I don't know. I haven't been there with everything going on. I know people that have gone, but I don't want to walk around a crowded room with the Omicron going on.
I was gonna say, personally, I don't know if I would go to a buffet right now.
No, I'm not sure that I would
Didn't
either.
Golden Corral go under? That's the only buffet thing left, I thought. Golden Corral?
I don't know. I don't know. I think that as we get older, that the lure of the buffet is a lot less. When I was younger and playing ball, we would just like to send on locusts on a buffet. In fact, I heard of one case where the comes in and says to the buffet manager, "Look, we'll pay the money and we'll eat moderately, and we'll all walk away whole. Or you can let us eat for free and we'll eat responsibly, or we'll pay and we'll just clean you out." And they would go in and just clean out these buffets. Interesting.
No, I will say this, Dave. My current favorite buffet is an all-you-can-eat sushi place. You cannot beat that buffet, if that's considered a buffet.
Yeah, is the quality good enough though?
Makes me full.
It's okay. Yeah, because I've always said, you can choke down a bad burger, but you can't choke down bad bait or bad sushi, because bad sushi is really bait. But if you like it and it stays down, hey, I think that's great. How about Nashville? Number 26 on the list, Nashville, $115,000. 115. Who said that? Brian Reed.
That was Brian.
Nicely played, B. Reed.
Very nice. Very nice.
Omaha, Nebraska. Now that's interesting. Middle of the country, Omaha, Nebraska, number 24, 116,000. But it's more expensive, rich in Omaha than it is Dallas or Nashville. And I would not have guessed that.
Really?
Yeah. Which one?
Wait. Omaha, Nebraska, the same place where they have the shareholders meeting every year.
There you go. I was just going to ask you, who do we know that lives in Omaha that's famous?
Dave Hagen.
No. Our good friend Warren Buffett. By the way, I saw something that Warren Buffett's partner was quoted as saying just recently. His partner, Charlie Munger. And we got a book for Christmas called The Wit of Charlie Munger. And one of the quotes I saw dealt with Bitcoin. And he said something like, Yeah, that's the dumbest ass idea I've ever seen. It's like, hey, you got a turd in your pocket, so I want one too. That's Charlie Munger's view of Bitcoin. I know you guys like Bitcoin, and I'm not a fan. I had to throw that in there on you. Sorry. Number 21, Sacramento. Now, who would think? You know what Sacramento is? The capital of California. A lot of people probably don't know that. $121,000 to be in the top 20% and rich. And above Sacramento at 19, Long Beach. What's that about?
Wow.
That doesn't make, I don't see San Diego, by the way, Nick. We'll keep looking. Long Beach, you need 127,000 to be considered rich, at least according to this standard, in Long Beach, California. Number 13. Now I'm going to let you guys guess the city. Can you guess the city at number 13? $135,000 to be considered rich according to this standard.
Chicago.
No,
Boston.
no,
Williamsport.
no,
Cleveland.
no. Los Angeles.
Really?
Really?
Right?
That-
Now,
that-
I wouldn't have
that
guessed
is a
that.
mind
when-
shift.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wouldn't have been as surprised as if I woke up in the morning with my head stapled to the carpet. I
So wait a
wouldn't have guessed
second.
that when
You said $135 to be
wealthy
wealthy in Los Angeles.
in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Wow.
Now I know you look at what you're making and you're going, you know, I'm wealthy or I'm almost wealthy. But I think that's a testament to probably large portions of Los Angeles that don't do that well, that we don't hear about that much. But I was really surprised to see that it's number 13 on the list. How about number 9? New York, 144,000 to be rich in New York. Now that I can't imagine either, because I hear New York's really expensive. Never been there, but I heard it's really expensive. 144,000. Yeah.
And Dave, to clarify, if the article even disclosed this, are they saying this is the total income for the household, or is this part to be making this amount?
No, it doesn't say. I'm assuming per person. Yeah. Number 7, Nick, San Diego. Pretty pricey
There
down
it
there.
is.
Yep.
I thought you just said San Diego wasn't on the list.
I didn't see it, but now it just jumped up at number 7. Almost bit me in the butt. 157,000. Boston, you guys mentioned Boston. Boston comes in at number 6. Number 5. This is interesting. Oakland.
Seattle.
Oakland.
Oh,
Brian. Close,
Seattle,
Brian.
Seattle's next at number 4, but Oakland, 161,000 to be considered wealthy in Oakland. Isn't that weird? Oakland, California, which really is pretty much a working town and a port. Surprised that it would be Oakland. Number 4, Seattle, of course, 186,000. Number 3, you guys want to guess number 3?
San Francisco.
Nope. Not
Really?
number 3. Not number 3. Good guess.
Williamsport.
No. Washington, D.C. That makes sense, I
okay.
guess.
That makes
Right?
sense.
Everybody's a lawyer. They got a big income, and the rents are probably reflective of that. Washington, D.C., 189,000 to be considered rich. Now, here's
Wow.
one you guys are never going to guess in a mill. Number 2. You want to
Milwaukee.
guess? No. Yes.
Milwaukee.
No. That's in Hawaii, isn't it? Milwaukee. Number 2.
Providence, Rhode Island.
No, last chance. Anyone? Bueller? Anyone?
Boise.
No. San Jose.
Oh man.
San Jose.
Wow.
And I guess people are starting to think of San Jose as kind of like San Francisco South. But
Mhm.
San Jose, I mean, that's surprising to me. Over 200,000. In fact, what was it? San Jose, 214,000. All right, number 1, drum roll,
San
please.
Francisco.
Right. I left my heart and my money in San Francisco, 239,000. Who would have thought? San Francisco, 239,000.
Well, that's actually funny, Dave. I left my heart and my money in Vegas. So
Well, leaving your money in Vegas is a different topic altogether and a different discussion altogether. And maybe we should do a podcast about gambling and such at some point. But I don't know. I found this article really interesting. I found it fun. It made me think about the differences in the various cities around the country. It surprised me, a lot of these cities. But let me test you guys. What are some of the critical flaws in this article? Either of you?
All right, I'll jump in on this.
Okay. All right.
We don't
You'll
have.
bite. Yeah.
I'll bite. We don't have any. Okay, income in and of itself, that's not wealth. We're
Right.
not talking. There was no discussion of any other assets that could already exist. There was no discussion of taxes. There was no discussion of cost of living in the area. I don't know if they've done. I don't know what their metric was. I believe they have a metric, and it may be a very simple metric, or maybe it's complex. I don't know. We just don't know. But I mean, just income itself, that's not a good enough. Yeah, not a good enough metric. We need to
Right.
know more.
Right. And I think their metric was income. But I think you raise an extremely good point, and I think this is a good takeaway for the listeners. Wealth is not necessarily income. Income can be fleeting. You could have an income of $250,000 for 3 years in a row and live in a city and be in one of these cities and be considered wealthy. And the fourth year, you lose your job or you lose that income and you're not wealthy anymore. So I don't know that income is a good measurement of wealth. In fact, I would argue that maybe net worth is a better long-term measurement of wealth, but there's a lot of things that go into that.
I think we should be looking at this in terms of how much interest are you receiving every year from your investments?
Right.
That's wealth. When you're earning $250,000 a year off of your investments,
Yeah.
then you've already earned the money and you're making another 250 off of it.
Right. Right. Or as that author that we had on about 2 years ago, the friend Nick, he said, look, you get some money, buy some bonds, buy some income. Think of it that way.
I mean, put it this way, if you can make $250,000 a year off bonds, you're doing pretty well for yourself.
Well, because bonds don't typically return that much by definition.
Return anything.
So if you're making 250 on bonds, you've got a whole parcel full of wealth there. But I think that's right. While I found income being the metric to be extremely interesting and certainly something to talk about, I don't think that income is a really good indication of wealth. And certainly there's other things that we could talk about that would be more representative of wealth.
Well, Dave, I mean,
what else?
Dave, you bring up a really good point, though. I mean, what is wealthy? You know, it's a term. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, discuss the top 20% in income.
Right. No, I think you bring up another very good point. You guys are hitting on both cylinders, all cylinders, whatever tonight. Wealth is kind of relative, and that they used was top 20%. I don't think top 20% is necessarily what I would consider wealthy. You look at some of these numbers that we talked about, incomes. What did we started out with the first one? What was the first town that we talked about? Was it Memphis? Detroit. Can you tell me that 66,000 should be considered wealthy? If you're making, even in Detroit, you're not able to, you don't have a lot of discretionary income. You don't have a lot of opportunity to do financial planning and accumulate wealth. 66,000 is pretty tight, even in a town like Detroit, where the rents, I think, would be significantly lower than here. So top 20%, I don't know. I don't know if that gets you there. Do you guys think 20% is a good metric, or should it be top 5%, or what do you think?
Well, how do you define wealthy? I think wealthy is very ambiguous.
Yeah.
And to each person, it could mean a different thing, such as wealth is someone who's living a happy life, whereas to another person, wealth can mean driving in a Ferrari, but being a couple $100,000 in debt. It's
Right.
very different.
Right. No, I think you hit it right on the head. And I got to tell you, you walked right into my trap, because in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a podcast on what's wealthy. I think that that's a discussion that's worthy to have. But
However, I would not mind crying in my Ferrari. That does sound pretty good.
well,
Yeah, but what's the fun of crying in your Ferrari while it's being repossessed?
Well,
when you-
you added something, Brian. You added it. Come on, it's my story.
I guess if you own it, it's good. And if you're making lease or purchase payments on it, it's not good. I guess that would be the situation. I don't know. All right. So that's what you need, at least under these metrics of this article, to be considered. In another podcast, we're going to talk about this same test, but apply it to different cities around the world. And I think that'll be kind of interesting to be able to compare different cities using this metric well. Let's take a break here, and then we'll come back for an email. This is Dave Hagan, and you're listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications. Let's listen in now as Dave answers some emails.
All right, Brian, I think you've got there an email for me. Go ahead.
There is
Whoa,
an email here
whoa.
from-
Dave, let me interrupt real quick. I'm sorry, I'm going back an episode, but do you think checks are going to be obsolete? Do you think we're just going to go straight digital? I had to get this off my chest.
Okay, that's a good question.
Sorry, Bri.
I don't know.
the email can hold. We can.
Yeah, we'll save that for next week. This is a good question. I mean, my 2 cents is that checks are going to become a lot less prevalent. There's issues regarding, fraudulent checks. Even a cashier's check is not as guaranteed form of payment as it once was. I think people walking around with checkbooks. I mean, I use checks every month. I don't know that we write hardly any checks anymore. I think it's just a lot easier to do it over online. And I think you're going to see less and less checks. That just seemed that's my 2 cents, but it was a very big form of payment. And you'd take your checks and you'd run them to the bank and you'd fill out the deposit. There's a whole processing that goes into depositing checks. And I think people are growing tired of that. I don't know. Brian, you have some exposure to banking in your day-to-day job. What do you see going on?
I just learned this and it makes perfect sense. There is a automation factor that has been created and it's trusted. And, I just recently learned that, certain banks are now charging additional fees if you want to send a manual wire.
What?
So
Really?
this is, this is a little bit of a stretch from, just doing, writing a check, but businesses that send a lot of wires, they now want the business to use the software provided by the bank to send wires through their applications, be it on their phone, on their website. And there's no longer a filling out of forms. And, you have to fax your wire, send a wire form to your bank by a certain time period, or it won't get sent. And then the bank calls you and says, hey, did you actually send this? What's the security code? They don't want to deal with that. They've built a product already that says, use our app. We know it's trusted. It's good. I don't have to pay people to call you and, say yes or no. Did you actually do this? Do you know the right security code? The computer already knows. So if the banks are already doing that to the corporations, it's only a matter of time until it trickles down to people. And it's not going to matter anyway, because in another 30 years, people aren't going to remember sending checks because they're going to trust the banking software and the applications, because that's all they know. They're gone. Checks are gone.
Man, I just can't imagine. Although I remember 5-6 years ago, someone was telling me about a new thing called Uber. And I'm going, you mean like someone just like shows up and drives you around in their car? And the guy goes, yeah. I said, are you shitting me? And you know what he said to me? He says, I shit you not. And I still have a hard time really believing how that all comes together, but it's really
it's
a great
convenience. Humans are inherently lazy. If you come up with a product that we believe is safe, we'll do it.
Right. And they've been having problems with wires, the last several years, where someone would say, hey, wire this to this account, and the bank would wire it out, and the money would disappear. I had a client who was in business for a lot of years and would buy flowers from Southeast Asia, and then they would be shipped, and they get an email that looked legit, and they said, hey, wire to this account this amount of money, and they did. And they found out that someone had been looking at their email, intercepted, and put together a wire account number, and their money was gone. And this business that had been around for 30 years closed because it cleaned them out. They didn't have enough depth to absorb that kind of loss. So, I mean, maybe it is better. Maybe it is better that it's done by software and internet, but I can't imagine. Heck, I remember the first time my business bank said, well, you can, you can scan the checks and send them to us. You can fax them to us. I said, how does that work? You won't have the check. I'll have the check. What if I just deposit the same one like 3 times? You'll never know. And yet somehow they'd figured it out with the routing number or what have you. But wow, how things have changed. I can't imagine a world without checks, but
well,
go
Dave,
ahead, Nick.
I must say, I mean, it was the same thing with 8-track to VCRs.
Yeah, I wasn't
DVDs.
I wasn't alive then. Yeah. Right.
Same here.
Right.
And what's very interesting is that no one sees it, but once there's an innovative item, everyone just jumps on it and doubles down.
Yeah.
I think what's actually really interesting is that, Blu-ray was the new DVD, but now everything is getting streamed to your smart TV. So are DVDs going to eventually become obsolete as well?
Yeah. I was in the store the other day and I saw some DVDs being sold, and I looked and said, how quaint, a DVD. Who wants to have the disc? Who wants to have records unless you're really an audiophile? Who wants to even have, I mean, interestingly enough, who wants to even buy songs and have songs when you can stream them out through one of the services for $12-15 a month or whatever it is?
$6.99 on Spotify.
Is it $6.99?
Here's
student rate, because they charge me more.
No comment. I am no longer a student. I'm no longer a student, so I can't comment.
Yeah, I mean, heck, you go back and take a class just to get the discount.
I have a box of my old CDs.
Right.
And I'm dating myself by saying this, but I took I took the CD cover, the art, took the art and the CD out of the case. I threw away all of the cases.
Yeah.
But I still have the CDs and the artwork. And I'm sitting around looking at this box going, why do I have this anymore? I'm never going to play another CD. But there's part of me that doesn't want to let it go. I think I'm going to let go of everything. And all of the mix CDs that's, I made for someone or someone made for me, those I'm going to keep in case I want to go back in time. But
I guess the same is true with, VHS and, all those medias.
I will say this, though, and what's different from CDs or DVDs, is vinyl, because you can't copy or you can't mix onto a vinyl. A vinyl is, tangible.
Right.
But
Mhm.
I see friends that are still playing vinyl inside their house. I think, it's kind of an asset at that point.
Well, I see people buying vinyl and they go, oh, it's the original sound. But at the end of the day, a vinyl record is a truly inferior recording compared to CD or even online, because you got the scratches and the pops and I had a record, I don't know, early on, Tommy James and the Shondells, and it had a pop in it. And I had always listened to it with the pop. And then when I heard it online, my brain waited for the pop. And I said, oh, that must not be the real recording. And it's just because the record that I had happened to have a pop, maybe from a scratch or something in it. So yeah, things change. But to bring this back around to checks, Brian, you think checks are gone, huh? At some point down the road?
I don't think. I pretty much know.
Really? Wow.
I think it's all going to be gone. It's going to take time. Give
Wow.
it, 30, 40 years. No one's going to remember the check, and it's just going to be a transfer of funds. And Nick, you're kind of right. You made a good point of there's no liability when there's no check involved. It's instant. One bank to another bank. They can all talk amongst themselves, make sure it's safe, and they can actually take us, the humans, out of the equation.
Actually, what I think is more interesting, though, sorry for cutting you off, Brian, is that like I had to send a check to someone because I owed them money for paying a bill for me, and I didn't have a stamp, and so I had to run to the store to go get a stamp, one stamp, go send a check for like $50. And I would much rather, for the ease of it, just send a Venmo or a Zelle or a what's it called, Cash App.
I remember just recently, Nick, I forget how the transaction was going, but it was between you and me. And you said, maybe this is the way it went. You said, oh, can you just Venmo it to me? I go, I don't even know. What is that? I thought Venmo was a liquor store. I didn't know. Right. And
That's
now
Bevmo.
Oh, Bevmo. Okay.
There you go.
I thought Bevmo was someone I knew in high school, but that's a different topic. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy like that. All right, we could go on and on like this, but Scott's given me the sign that we've run out of time. Tune in next week. We're going to be talking about this definition of wealth. We've got some other things to talk about. I want to spend some time in the next couple of weeks talking about who's your financial advisor. I think that that's a topic that people are thinking about. And for those that aren't thinking about it, they should. Who's giving you financial advice, or what kind of people should you go to get certain types of financial advice? So stick with us. I think we've got some interesting stuff coming up. I think that's a wrap for today. For coming in, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave, as always.
Always a pleasure. Nick Appel, thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure, boys.
Yeah, how's your health? How you feeling these days, guy? A little better?
Hopefully better next week.
I like it. I like it. All right. This is Dave Hagan, and you've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast.
You've been listening to the Financial Wellness Podcast, Dave's weekly message to keep you on your path to financial success. If you have a question that you would like Dave to answer on the podcast, go to thefinancialwellnesspodcast.com. You can leave an audio message with one click of a button, or type your message into the question box. Either way, it's sent right to Dave's phone. Remember, Dave will randomly draw from the submitted questions and pick the winner of a free 1-hour personal conversation with Dave to help you achieve your financial goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you receive the new episode notifications, or share the podcast via the app with your family and friends. This is your announcer, Nick Appel, wishing you every financial success.